Hi, this is Yoan, and in this episode, I've got a new wallet pattern to share with you. This is the Anisa wallet. It is a trifold wallet. The measurements are about 7 3/4 inch by 4 1/4 inch when it's closed like this. And when it is fully opened, the measurements are about 11 3/4 inch by 7 3/4 inch. There are 10 card slots, and each slot can accommodate up to 2 cards, 3 slip pockets to keep your cash, cell phone, passport, etc., an optional ID window, and an exterior zipper pocket as well. I've created 2 designs for this project. So this is design 1 using 2 coordinating fabrics, and this one is design 2 in patchwork version. For this design, I left out the ID slot but add a very useful wristlet strap, also a layer of RFID blocking fabric. Download the PDF pattern at YoanSewingStudio.com. The link will be somewhere in the description box down below, and let's get started. For the design 1, you want to prepare 2 coordinating fabrics. First, we're going to work on the card pocket. So you want to prepare panel 1, fuse the wrong side with some ultra lightweight interfacing. So you want to find the very lightweight interfacing because we want to add a little bit of stability to the fabric without adding too much bulk. You don't really have to cut one long strip. Instead, you can cut several strips and then fuse them right next to each other. Position the interfacing about 1 inch away from the end of the strap and of course center the position. Draw the pleat lines on the wrong side of panel 1, just like shown here. So you want to draw from the top or the 4 1/2 inch line to the bottom. Start folding and pressing from the bottom. So here I'm aligning my ruler to the very last line or the 5 1/4 inch line. Fold towards the top and then press. Now open the fold, and then you want to fold the next line. This time we're going to fold this towards the bottom, just like so. Of course, you want to maintain the previous folding line and then press. I'm using a pressing cloth here to protect my iron's plate since this isn't woven interfacing and it's very lightweight, so just in case I don't want it to melt. Now we're going to fold the next line towards the top and then press. So from here on, you just want to keep alternating. When you fold towards the bottom, always maintain the previous pleated lines. If you have followed me for a while, this should come very easy for you. Otherwise, just take your time and keep alternating and pressing. Alright, here I've come to the last line, so I'm going to fold this towards the bottom and then press. And you should end up with something like this, so there should be 5 pleated lines, which are gonna be the card slots. Top stitch all the pleats, and once you've done that, you wanna stitch the sides with about 1/8 inch of seam allowance to hold the pleats in place. Next, we're gonna trim the bottom part so that the length of this pocket panel will measure 8 1/2 inch. So here I've got my ruler and I align the top edges of the pocket panel with the 8 1/2 inch point mark of the ruler and then trim off the excess fabric. And there you go, the first pocket is done. Now we're gonna make the second pocket exactly the same way, and you should end up with 2 identical pocket panels. Now take the panel 2 strips, and then you wanna lay the first panel on the left side of pocket 1 and then lay the second panel on the right side of pocket 2, just like shown here. And then stitch this in place with 3/8 inch of seam allowance. Press the seams towards panel 2 and then top stitch. Once you've done that, trim off the seam allowances as close as you can to the seams, but still carefully do not cut through the stitches though. Now we're gonna sew the second strip to the right side of pocket 2, also with 3/8 inch of seam allowance, and you should end up with something like this. Next, you wanna take panel 3 or the pocket lining and then lay this and the pocket panel wrong sides together, just like so. Now take panel 4 or the binding, and then we're gonna bind these edges of the card pocket. So let's lay the binding strip right side down and then stitch this in place with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Since there are 3 layers of fabric, you may want to use your walking foot so that your fabric will not be shifting. Press the seams towards the binding, and then you want to flip this to the wrong side. Fold the edges of the binding towards the seam allowance, about 3/8 of an inch, just like shown here, and then press. Now you want to fold this one more time towards the wrong side. Go all the way in so that the binding will be hugging the raw edges of the pocket. And then press and then stitch in the ditch to secure the binding. Place some clips to hold the binding temporarily. And then you want to stitch right on the seams between the binding and the pocket so that it will look invisible. Once you've done that, you want to repeat the same for the pocket too. Next, we're going to work on the slip pocket. So prepare panel 5 and then lay them right sides together and then stitch one of the side with 3/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Press the seams open, fold wrong sides together, press it again and top stitch. Take panel 6 and lay that right side up. Now lay the slip pocket panel and lay that at your left hand side, and then take pocket 1 and lay that on top of the slip pocket. You want to align the sides and the bottom edges. Now take the card pocket 2 and lay that at the opposite side or at your right hand side, also aligning the sides and the bottom edges. Secure them in place with some clips and then base stitch all around with 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance. Now, if you wish to add wristlet strap or RFID blocking fabric, please refer to the design too. So you may want to scroll a little further, or if you're watching from the YouTube, you can simply click on the timestamps. Next, we're gonna work on the ID slot if you opt for this. First, you will need to print out the provided template. So you will see 2 templates. One is for the outer fabric and the other one is for the inner fabric. Cut 2 identical rectangles. One is for the outer fabric and the other one is for the inner fabric. First, we're gonna cut the outer fabric template and then we're gonna cut the smallest inner rectangle, this one right here. Once you've done that, lay the template on the wrong side of the outer fabric. Now you can either pin this in place or place a pattern weight just to stabilize this. And then grab a pen and you want to trace the center rectangle. I found it easier to trace this with the help of a ruler so that I can keep the line straight. Once you've done that, you want to grab a pair of scissors and then cut right on that rectangle mark. Now cut the second rectangle from the template and then we're going to trace this on the outer fabric. Draw a diagonal line on the corner of the rectangle, connecting the first rectangle and the second rectangle mark, just like shown here, and repeat the same to all the corners. So you should end up with something like this. Now grab your scissors and then cut all the diagonal lines. Keep your fabric facing wrong side out, and then you want to fold the inner edges towards the outside. Keep the fold aligned with the second rectangle template. And then go to your ironing board and press. Repeat the same to all the sides to create the window at the center. And this is how your outer fabric panel should look like. Next, you want to cut the inner fabric template and then work the exact same way as the outer fabric. And when you're done, you will find that the inner fabric has a slight larger window than the outer fabric. Flip the inner pocket panel wrong side up, just like that, and then take the vinyl and then lay that on the wrong side of the inner pocket. Now use a little bit of glue. I'm using my fabric basting glue here. You can also use regular Elmer glue to hold the vinyl onto the fabric temporarily. A little goes along the way here. Once you've done that, stitch this all around about 1/4 of an inch away from the window. When working with clear vinyl, you may want to use walking foot or Teflon foot. If this is your very first time ever working with clear vinyl, I recommend to do a little bit of testing beforehand to see which setting will work best for you. Now let's apply a little bit of basting glue just around the corners of the fabric, not too much. And then take the outer fabric panel and lay that on the wrong side of the inner fabric panel. So the wrong sides should be touching each other, just like shown here. And then sew about 1/8 of an inch away from the window of the outer fabric. Next, we're going to bind one of the short side or the side that will be the opening of the ID slot. So grab your binding strip and we're going to bind this exactly the same way we did with the card pocket panels. Once you've done that, you want to lay panel 10 right side up and then lay the ID pocket panel right side up at your right hand side, just like shown here. So you want to align the raw edges of the sides and the bottom, clip them in place, and then you want to sew following the existing top stitching line. You want to sew the sides and the bottom. Do not sew the top or where the opening is, otherwise you won't be able to insert your ID. Alright, now if you want, you can do a little bit of testing. So grab your ID and insert that into the slot. So a standard driver's license that is the size of a credit card should fit snugly in this slot. With your fabric marker, you want to draw a line on the long sides of the ID window, about 1/4 inch away from the top stitching line, from the top right below the binding all the way down to the bottom. And then go ahead and stitch this in place. And that's it, the ID slot is done. Now you want to position panel 10, the one with the ID window, right by the pocket panel 2, so at your right hand side, with the ID slot at the bottom position. And then you want to sew this in place with 3/8 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done that, you want to press the seams carefully though, be mindful with the vinyl. And then top stitch. Now again, we're going to trim off the seam allowances to minimize the bulk. And voila, the wallet interior is done. Now let's work on the back exterior. So prepare panel A and panel B. So panel A will be the upper top of the wallet and panel B will be the lower part. And in between here, we're gonna place the zipper. For the interfacing, we're gonna use mid to heavyweight kind of interfacing or stabilizer. For this wallet, I use Decoville Light. This is my favorite interfacing when it comes for wallet making. Position the interfacing about a slight further than 1/4 inch from the bottom edge of the panel A or the side where the zipper is going to be installed. We're gonna do the same with panel B, but this time you wanna position the interfacing a slight further than 1/4 inch from the top edges or where the zipper is going to be installed. You may gonna see a lot of space uncovered at the bottom. That's about right, since we're gonna trim off the bottom panel later. Let's fuse this interfacing according to the manufacturer's instructions. Next, we're gonna prepare the zipper. So this time, I'm going fancy by using a metal zipper. Feel free to use nylon coil zipper if that's all you have. So you will need a 6-inch long zipper, which means the length of the zipper teeth from the start to the end of the zipper is 6 inches long. I hand stitch the top edge of the zipper so that it will stay shut. We're gonna install zipper tabs to both ends of the zipper. So you wanna cut 2 identical little rectangles, fold this in half, and then position that on the zipper tape extension. Now secure this in place and then stitch about 1/4 inch away from the folded edge. Once you've done that, you want to repeat the same to the opposite end. Trim off the zipper tab so the entire length of the zipper will measure 8.5 inch. Try to be centered so that everything looks even. And then trim them again so that the width of the zipper tab will be the same as the zipper tape. Lay panel B right side up, and then we're going to apply some basting tape on the top edges of panel B. And then take the zipper and lay that right side down. Now let's apply basting tape on the top edges of the zipper tape. And then lay panel C right side down. Once everything is secured, sew this in place with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. So when you sew, position your needle right by the interfacing, not on the interfacing. Now let's turn this to the right side and then finger press the seams and then top stitch. Once you've done that, you want to lay the panel B right side up again and apply some basting tape on the top edges where the zipper tape is. Now take panel A and lay that right side down with the bottom edges facing up. So be mindful with the orientation of the interfacing. Now flip this to the wrong side, and again you want to apply some basting tape on the top edges of the zipper tape on the wrong side. Now fold panel C and bring the bottom edges towards the top edges of the zipper, and then finger press so that the fabric will be sticking together. And once everything is secured, go ahead and stitch this in place with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Once you've done that, go ahead and finger press and top stitch. Stitch along the side edges of the pocket with about 1/4 inch of seam allowance to hold this in place. And voila, the external zipper pocket is done. Now let's trim off the bottom edges so that this panel will measure 12.5 inches long. So your exterior panel should now measure 12.5 inch by 8.5 inch, which is identical with the interior panel. For the closure, we're gonna use a set of button snap. First, we're gonna install the button stud. So you wanna measure 2 3/4 inch from the bottom part of the wallet exterior, right on the center, and then put a little mark there. And then install the button stud according to the manufacturer's instructions. Now it's time to assemble the wallet. So lay the wallet interior right side up, and then you wanna lay the wallet exterior right side down, making sure that the upper top of the wallet exterior, or the one with panel A, is touching the upper top of the wallet interior, or the one with the panel 10 or the ID slot. I like to move the zipper pull a little bit towards the center so that it will not be interfering with the bulk. Secure them in place with some clips and then sew all around with 3/8 inch of seam allowance, leaving about 4 inches of opening at the bottom part of the wallet. Once you've done that, you want to clip all the corners. Be careful not to cut through the stitches. And then we're gonna trim off the seam allowances of the sides and the upper top part of the wallet. Do not trim off the seam allowances of the bottom part or where the opening is, because we need that extra fabric to fold the raw edges later. So you wanna trim off the seam allowances as close as you can to the seams, but again, be careful, do not cut through the seams because you're gonna be very sad if that happens. Turn the wallet inside out through the opening hole. So you want to gently pull the fabric, no need to rush. Using a point turner or knitting needle or chopstick, you want to gently poke the corners, make them nice and flat. Now at this point, if you wish to, you can go to your ironing board and gently press your wallet. Set your iron on low setting and be very mindful with the ID slot. Do not place your iron over the vinyl because it's going to melt. And if you want, you can place a paper or a piece of fabric inside the vinyl pocket to give it extra protection. And then press on the exterior side. Now let's fold the raw edges of the opening hole towards the wrong side, about 3/8 inch. And then clip. Once you've done that, you want to top stitch all around with 1/8 inch of seam allowance. Start sewing from the bottom part where the opening hole is. I like to increase the stitch length when doing the final top stitching. I do 3mm stitch length for this, and as always, I highly recommend to use walking foot. It will make your life much easier. And of course, take your time and no need to rush. Alright, we're almost done. The last step will be to install the button cap. So you want to measure 1/2 inch down from the top edges of your wallet interior. Right on the center, of course. So it should be very close to the vinyl pocket, but it shouldn't be obstructing. So let's install the button cap or the female button on that 1/2 inch mark. Again, you want to follow the manufacturer's instructions, and that's pretty much it. Your wallet is done. For the design 2, the construction is pretty much identical as design 1. The only difference is the fabric combination. So for the exterior, we're gonna play with the patchwork using 2.5 inch strips. For panel A, you wanna cut 4 2.5 inch by 5 inches strips. Sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance and then press the seams as you go. And this panel should now measure 8.5 inch by 5 inch. For the panel B, we're going to use 4 2.5 inch by 8 inch strips, and you want to lay them out just like so. Sew them together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance, and of course, press the seams as you go. So my panel A and B are done and ready to go. I've already applied the interfacing on the wrong side, so I'm going to install the zipper pocket exactly the same way as design 1. And the same goes with the interior, so work and assemble the pockets exactly the same way. However, for design 2, we will use one uniform fabric. Now, if you notice here, I accidentally placed my slip pocket at the right-hand side. This isn't too much of an error, but I would rather have it on the left-hand side. So please do ignore what I did here, but just follow the tutorial from design 1 and place your slip pocket at the left-hand side. For this one, I decided to add the RFID blocking fabric. So I cut one piece the same size as panel 6. So we're gonna place the RFID blocking fabric on the wrong side and then base stitch this all around with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now, if you opt for the eddy slot just like the design 1 and you want it to be protected with the RFID blocking fabric as well, instead you want to first finish assembling the wallet interior, attach the panel 10 or the eddy slot, and then cut your RFID blocking fabric identical size as the wallet interior, and then apply that to the wrong side of your wallet and base stitch all around with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Now, if you wish to skip the ID slot, it's very simple. Simply skip the panel 7, 8, and 9 and have the panel 10 ready as it is. Another additional feature that you can do with this wallet is adding the wristlet strap. So if you want to opt for that, we're gonna first work on the D-ring tab. So you will need a 1/2 inch wide D-ring, and you will also need a 1/2 inch wide cotton twill tape. So you want to cut the tape about 2 inches long and then attach that to the D-ring just like that. Alright, the next step will be something that I wish I would have done differently. So as you can see here, I positioned my D-ring tab on the right hand side of the card pocket panel about 1 inch from the bottom. Please ignore this and rather attach your D-ring tab on the opposite side, so still on the right side but about 1 inch down from the top edges of the card pocket panel, just like indicated by the arrow here. The reason for this is because if you wanted to freehand and only holding onto your wristlet, the card slots will be facing down. Although I did a little bit of testing with my wallet and I have no problem with the card sliding out, for the sake of a peace of mind, it's better to just install the D-ring tab on the opposite direction. Stitch the D-ring tab with about 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Of course, in the proper position, ignore mine, and then sew panel 10 with 3/8 inch of seam allowance, and then proceed with the rest of the steps. For the wristlet strap, you want to cut a piece of fabric 13 inch by 2 inch, and you will need a 1/2 inch swivel hook as well. I'm not going to demonstrate the rest of the step on how to make the wristlet strap, but I will direct you to a different video, so check out somewhere in the description box down below if you're watching from YouTube, and I will also include the link in the pattern as well. And that's pretty much it for today's tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoy and happy sewing! That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye!